Looking back on the years that brought me here, I can't help but think of when our relationship began. We met in college, both full of dreams, and felt an immediate connection. Kay was everything I wanted. Beautiful, smart, and full of life. We spent all our time together, and I truly believed I had found my soulmate. Our relationship deepened quickly, and I thought we were destined for lifelong happiness. But as time passed, reality set in the carefree days of our youth gave way to the responsibilities of adulthood. The woman I once adored began to feel like a stranger. Our lives became consumed with raising kids, managing careers, and navigating family dynamics. The love that once burned so brightly began to fade, and I found myself stuck in a marriage that was far from the fairy tale. I imagined our marriage had reached a breaking point. Closeness dwindled to almost nothing happening, maybe once a month, if my wife wasn't holding a grudge in the early days. Our physical relationship was frequent 4 or 5 times a week. Her passion and energy in the bedroom were part of what drew me to her. But now, she had changed. No longer the attractive, lively woman I married. She had become distant and uninterested in closeness, almost as if she despised it. Kay has 2 younger sisters, Katie and Kathy. All 3 were known for being fun and lively, especially in the bedroom, and I was thrilled when Kay chose me. We married 12 years ago after she got pregnant in college. We were both seniors and in love, planning to get married anyway. Our daughter, Sally, was born 5 months after the wedding, followed by our son, Kevin, a year and a half later. Both kids are spoiled by their mom, her sisters, and her parents, who have always looked down on me because I couldn't provide the luxuries they wanted for Kay. Her parents, who never worked a day in their lives, lived off inheritances. They're running out of money now, but only I know that because I checked the property records years ago. Kay's sisters each have 2 kids. Katie is married to Ron, who runs 5 dry cleaning stores for his dad. Kathy is married to Mark, who inherited a house and some money when his grandparents died. He owns a marketing firm, though I've never seen him work like Kay. They're fun at parties, but useless when it comes to real work. 2 years ago, I sat in my home office frustrated after having to take care of myself in the shower that morning and took a hard look at my life. Almost no ex. A lazy wife who doesn't work. 2 kids who don't respect me and take after their mother a job. I hate where the company treats us like servants. A house near her parents where it snows for 4 months of the year. I grew up in the South and hate the cold. A 10-year-old car that was originally my wife's until she wrecked it. Traded in my car and bought herself a new one because she couldn't wait for hers to be fixed. I'm not even allowed to drive the new car without facing verbal misuse. And no, Zed, we're paying for a house that's too big because we need to live near her family. Paying for a small, inbred dog that needs meds to survive. Paying for a maid twice a week because housework made her too tired for Z's. 10 years ago, the small increase in Zeke's lasted 2 months, but the maid is still around. We're paying for a clubhouse and spa membership so she can hang out with her friends and sisters. I don't play golf and have never been to the spa. Weekly payments for new clothes and hairstyling because she needs to look good for her social obligations. Paying for tennis lessons for her and the kids, though none of them are any good and never play. The kids would stay high 24/7 if they could. We take 3 annual vacations. One in winter with her family for skiing, which I don't do because of a bad knee. One in spring to a big city for shopping. And one in summer to a beach trip that I'm not even invited to. Christmas and Thanksgiving are always spent at her family's houses. My parents live in a small bungalow on a beach in the South. But their house is too small to visit 1 wife, 2 kids, 1 father-in-law, 1 mother-in-law, 2 sisters-in-law, 2 nephews, 2 nieces, and 2 brothers-in-law. All of whom mock me, because I don't have a family inheritance, making life easy. I work long hours. Yet my wife and kids don't appreciate the effort I put in to make their lives comfortable. On top of all that, my wife is cheating on me exactly. She was a cheating liar. I didn't stumble upon this by accident, a few months before reassessing my life. I wanted to figure out why Kay seemed so intent without Zex. Either she'd lost interest or was getting it elsewhere. So I decided to investigate. We live in a digital age where getting spyware, recorders, cameras, and monitoring software is easy. I started by placing a recorder in her car, connected to the car battery for unlimited power, and set up a Bluetooth station in the garage to automatically download recordings to my home PC. I then installed discrete cameras in every room of the house except the kids' rooms, and even covered outdoor areas like the patio, pool, and garage, all feeding directly to my computer. From early footage, I figured out Kay's phone code, which she had kept secret from me at around AM. I accessed her phone and installed monitoring software that allowed me to listen to all her calls and read every message. I also upgraded our home internet to business class, enabling remote access to my home PC from my phone. 2 weeks later, after everyone went to bed, I sat in my office and listened to a recording from her car. I heard Kay say, "Can you meet this Thursday at my place? 10 works for me. I can't wait to ride you hard. Me too, babe. Love you." That hit me like a ton of bricks. I immediately shut down my computer and took the dog for a walk, seething with anger. I was prepared for the worst, but hearing it was still a gut punch. However, I realized I wasn't sad, just angry. The next morning, I faced the reality of my life. A cheating wife and a life full of one-sided commitments. I needed to get out of this nightmare. First, I had to identify the guy and gather hard evidence. I realized there were no relevant conversations on Kay's phone. She must have had another one. After working late, I searched her car and found the hidden phone in the front console's air vent, secured with Velcro. I used the same code as her primary phone, installed the monitoring software, and put everything back as it was. Then I reviewed the results. 2 years' worth of deleted but recoverable texts. What I found was shocking. The messages revealed that Kay and her sisters were comparing their lovers' performances and even discussed swapping partners. My wife's latest affair was with our daughter's soccer coach. Katie was after a grocery boy, but Kay and Kathy warned her that unmarried guys were off limits. Their mom even had rules for cheating. Kathy was sleeping with a mechanic who had been with all 3 sisters, and their mom had been with him first. Kay had also slept with Ron and Mark, but only occasionally, though her sisters encouraged her to keep them in line. I knew I needed an exit strategy. The following week, I pretended to be clueless while starting arguments with over household chores, which led her to snap at me. I made a mental note to restart the fights periodically and moved into the guest room a week later. I had a plan. I wanted out of the marriage, out of my job, all the money, no alimony, and I didn't want the kids since she had ruined them. I wanted to hurt my in-laws and make Kay suffer mentally for as long as possible. Ultimately, I wanted to start over and build a real family. I realized I'd been foolish. Neither Kay nor her family appreciated a hard-working, devoted husband. Her parents, sisters, and their husbands were toxic, narcissistic people who only cared about getting what they wanted. I began to devise a plan to get her sisters divorced and leverage my in-laws to my advantage. It was time to take control. When I was at Katie's for dinner, I discreetly took close-up photos of 1 alarm clock, 2 wall clocks, and a smoke detector. At Kathy's, I did the same with 2 alarm clocks, 2 wall clocks, and a doorbell cup. At Mom's, I snapped a picture of 1 alarm clock. I had already replaced all the smoke detectors at home with newer models a year ago, mainly to stop Kay from complaining. The hardest part was finding a matching doorbell cover, but eBay came through. After installing cameras in each house, I hosted a pool party and invited everyone over while they were swimming. I borrowed their house keys and installed monitoring software on their phones, knowing their lock codes from previous recordings. During the party, I accidentally dropped a bag of ice. Katie snapped. Are you completely useless? Go, get more ice. I apologized and left on the way. I stopped by Mom's, Kathy's, and Katie's houses. To make a few replacements, I installed wireless boxes in their attics. After connecting to their networks, I also copied their house keys, grabbed some ice, and headed back. When I returned, Kathy sarcastically said, "It took you long enough." I made up a story about a flat tire. No one thanked me or showed any sympathy. 2 days later, I had video proof of Kathy with that mechanic. They rushed inside, leaving a trail of clothes from the front door to the bedroom. No foreplay, just straight to the action. Afterward, he said he needed to leave before his wife got suspicious. Kathy tried to coax him into another round, but he declined, saying he needed to save energy for his wife. As he left, he entered his phone code in front of the camera, which I noted. The next Thursday, I snuck in while they were busy and installed monitoring software on his phone, which was in his pants on the living room floor. Things escalated from there. The next day, I discovered Katie's lover was none other than her uncle, and her aunt was in on it too. All three undressed, and the aunt, who looked great for her age, joined in. I endured watching it, thinking I'd rather be watching National Geographic. Later, I caught my wife in our bedroom with Cheryl, our neighbor's wife, a stunning redhead. They kissed the whole time, and I found myself enjoying that video. Afterward, Cheryl took a shower and left walking home, visibly bow-legged. Then came the shocker. Ron and Mark entered Katie's bedroom and undressed. I realized I never wanted to shake hands with them again after what I saw. Finally, I reviewed footage from Katie's parents' house. I skipped most of it, not wanting to see them undressed. But I did catch Katie's uncle with her mom while her dad watched from a chair next to the bed. Afterward, her mom pulled out what looked like an industrial jackhammer and went to town. The noise could probably shake the whole house. It was easier than expected, but a lot weirder. I wondered, could I get Morgan Freeman to narrate these videos? You're probably wondering, was this video obtained legally? Who cares? I never planned to bring this to court. My goal was to make sure no one would want this to end up in court. Before sharing any of the videos, I had to remove the recorders to prevent them from being traced back to me. I needed to take the cameras out of their homes, which was easy enough. I hosted another pool party and accidentally dropped a bag of ice, Kay teased. "Nice job, numbskull," Katie added. "Does he even have any?" Kathy joked. "Aren't they in your purse?" They all snickered, and even my daughter, Sally, mumbled, "Mom." Why is he always so embarrassing? Ron suggested ask for help with heavy stuff. Next time, Mark joked, "We can have one of the girls help you." Next time, my son Kevin sneered man up, "Dad?" They all laughed, as in Kate told me to go get more ice. Katie's parents chimed in, telling me to hurry because their drinks were getting warm. Typical, but this was the first time all 9 of them mocked me. At once, I grabbed the excuse to leave, retrieved the alarm clocks, and replaced them with new cameras. All in the time it took to get a new bag of ice. First, I sent the video of Kathy with the mechanic to her, and Mark then sent the video of Katie with her aunt and uncle to her and Ron with the message, "You shouldn't mess with another woman's husband." Did everything blow up? Not exactly. The sisters complained to their mother, who intervened with the usual "for the sake of the children" line. It was just a mistake. "She only loves you," she pleaded. But the final blow came when their mom told each son-in-law privately, "You're our favorite, and we plan to leave all our inheritance to you and our daughter." Each thought he was the chosen one to push them further. I sent Ron and Mark their own compromising videos with a message: "This will go public. If you don't file for divorce on grounds of infidelity within a year, no home record deserves to stay married." After what she did when Ron and Mark were complaining about their wives, without mentioning the cheating, I casually told them, I think the in-laws are broke. I heard they have a second mortgage, no properties left, no savings, and no Social Security. They never worked. So this adds up. That was the final straw. Ron and Mark filed for divorce on grounds of infidelity within a week using the same attorney. My in-laws were devastated when they found out how wealthy Ron and Mark really were. It turned out Ron wasn't a big shot. After all, he was just a manager at his dad's dry cleaners, living in a house his dad owned as a wedding gift, with both cars being company cars. Mark wasn't much better off. He had a small inheritance and a trust fund from his grandfather, which he thought were safe in the divorce. But since they were the only income for the household, they were split in the divorce. They used up all their savings on lawyers, and Mark ended up with a third of the trust fund, while Kathy got 2/3. It wasn't much. As for their house, everyone thought Mark owned it, but it was actually his parents'. He had told everyone he bought it from them when they retired. But they still owned it. Mark's parents had basically disowned him, letting him live in the house on the condition he stayed out of their lives forever. Kathy tried to convince them to let her and the kids stay. But my mother-in-law ruined it by threatening to sue Mark's dad if he didn't let them live there for free. He told her, you can buy the house and gift it to your daughter, and hung up. The house went up for sale 2 days later. Mark never owned a marketing firm. He was actually fired for sexual maltreatment at his first job out of college. A week later, my mother-in-law ended up in jail with a restraining order after attacking the mechanic's wife. She believed the mechanic's wife was behind the incriminating videos and slapped her in a coffee shop. Bad move. The mechanic's wife, with her babies in a stroller, punched my mother-in-law, breaking her nose and giving her 2 black eyes. The whole incident was caught on the coffee shop's cameras and a hidden camera in my mother-in-law's car. While waiting for the police, the mechanic's wife asked, "Why do you think I sent the videos?" My mother-in-law, still sneering despite her broken nose, replied, "He said, you weren't good. In bed. Did you really think you could keep him all to yourself?" When we were more than willing to share, I decided to help the mechanic's wife by sending her the video of Kathy with the mechanic, along with his trophy pics and cheating texts. The mechanic was divorced within 3 months. At a family gathering, Ron and Mark, both drunk, complained to me about their divorces. Mark admitted he married Kathy, hoping her parents were rich and that it would reconcile him with his dad. Now he had almost nothing left, with most of his trust fund going to his ex-wife. Ron revealed that he married Katie, hoping to inherit his dad's dry cleaning businesses. But instead, he was stuck managing a store that lost money. Worse, his dad's new wife was pregnant, making Ron doubt he'd inherit anything. It turned out the sisters were too focused on marrying into wealth to realize their husbands weren't as rich as they seemed. The gold diggers had been fooled by ERS. Both daughters ended up moving back in with their parents, who despised having them and their kids around. My mother-in-law even complained, "Do we really have to put up with those 2 witches and their loser kids?" With the sisters divorced, my little hobby was paying off. Life at home improved slightly, and my wife even briefly complimented me as the main breadwinner compared to her sister's exes, though they quickly turned it into a joke. While my mother-in-law was recovering from nose surgery, I enjoyed a brief reprieve from her interference. Her nose healed cred and noticeably bigger, which was a small victory for me. Meanwhile, I grew more resentful of my boss, John, who had become a greedy, self-centered idiot as the company grew. Our bonuses had shrunk from $116,000 to less than $200, and I was earning less each year due to inflation and rising costs. Since my surveillance hobby had worked so well, I expanded it to John's office, his home, and his secretary. Sasha's apartment rumors suggested they were having an affair, and it wasn't hard to confirm. I got a copy of Sasha's apartment key during a management meeting and installed cameras and monitoring software with access to their phones. I discovered they were meeting every Thursday at Sasha's apartment. I got video evidence of everything. Sasha and I always got along well at work. Unlike the other men, I wasn't afraid of John or interested in Sasha romantically. Most of the women at the office were cold towards her. Sasha dressed professionally, often in long skirts that hid her legs and with round face. I assumed she was overweight. However, after seeing the videos from her apartment, I realized that was far from true. Sasha worked out regularly and was very fit, though she dressed in oversized t-shirts to avoid unwanted attention. She also wore minimal makeup, which I respected. John, on the other hand, was a 60-second man, so I didn't have to watch their physical engaged videos for long. After 4 weeks of surveillance, I quit my job. I had built the company's software from scratch and decided to create a sales module with predictive planning features. I knew John would need my help to finish his current projects. Coincidentally, one of the oldest parts of the code had become corrupted and the backups were missing. An innocent mistake by it. I started working from home, so my routine didn't change much. 2 weeks later, John was begging me to return. I negotiated a contract that doubled my previous hourly rate, which meant I could quadruple my old salary with overtime. I rewrote the corrupted code from memory, improving it and adding new features requested by the sales team. The other modules needed adjustments to work with the new one, but the enhancements made my sales module even better. Customers loved the updates, and both John's software and my new company software were successful. After 30 days, my contract was extended indefinitely. The following week, my wife received a letter from an attorney about a relative who had passed away. We met with the attorneys and learned that her great-uncle, who had no immediate family, left a trust fund providing $4,000 per month to a family member of good moral character if that person had a child and named it after him or his late wife. The amount would increase to $20,000 per month. Since Kay's 2 sisters were excluded due to their past behavior, the attorneys approached her. We signed the paperwork and received our first check. Kay was thrilled and talked non-stop on the way home about quitting birth control and having another baby to secure the larger payout once home. I told her we need to talk. She was too happy to note my serious tone at the kitchen table. I had to ask her to stop texting. I confessed I quit my job a year ago and things haven't gone as planned. What? And you're just now telling me? She exclaimed. I started my own software company. It's working, but it's taking longer than expected. Well, that doesn't matter now, she replied dismissively. We have plenty of money and more coming. She jumped up to kiss me, but I stopped her. I'm never going to have sex with you again, I said. She turned red with anger. What did you say? I'm never going to sleep with you again. She screamed. Who do you think you are? I calmly pulled out my phone and showed her a video. Remember when your sisters got those tapes from the mechanic's wife? We got one too, but I deleted your copy so you'd never know. I kept mine just in case I played the video. She was utterly shocked. Frozen eyes, wide mouth, open arms hanging limply at her sides. I told her I met with the mechanic's wife and begged her to let us reconcile. I explained that I allowed you to be with other women because I couldn't fulfill that need. For a brief moment, I saw a hint of compassion in my wife's eyes, but it quickly vanished, replaced by a conniving look. That's in the past. What do you mean? You won't have sex with me, she demanded. I shouted, we haven't had sex in over a year. Why would I start now? Kay looked confused and said, because of the money, dear. $20,000 a month is a lot. Don't be mad at me. I've been stressed, but that's behind us now. Please, let's focus on our future and having a new baby. No, I replied. You've treated me horribly since we got married. Her tone changed instantly. Listen, you worthless crap. We're going to have sex and make a baby, or I'll divorce. You got it, she threatened, jabbing her finger at me. I just stared at her. And I'm not sharing the $4,000 a month either, she added, trying to sound tough. I relaxed and calmly said, fine by me. I'm filing for divorce on the grounds of infidelity. Can you give me the number of the attorney we just met? They seemed competent. I'm sure I can find a good divorce lawyer with them. Kay instantly calmed down, realizing I had the upper hand. She sat down and said more softly, it was just sex. I don't love her. I only love you. Let's not throw away all the years we've spent together. I'm just catching up on the new rules. I replied, the lying, the cheating. It was all a mistake. I love you and want things back the way they were. I agree, Letton. Go to the bedroom right now, she suggested eagerly. I knew you loved me, I said, feeling hopeful. No, I was lying, she retorted. Did you see how easily you believed me interesting to be on the other side, isn't it? If you really loved me, you'd try to make this work. She continued, her tone sharp. All right, you're right. I'll work harder on our relationship. I conceded, trying to ease the tension. I knew you loved me. Want to make it up to me in the bedroom? She asked, her voice softening. No, I'm never having sex with. You again? I responded firmly. Kay looked shocked. But you just said you'd work harder on our relationship. She pointed out confusion in her eyes. Yes, I did. I was lying, I admitted, feeling a strange sense of detachment. It gets easier the more you do it. Kay looked like she was about to cry. I'm sorry, I was just kidding. Do you really mean it? She asked, her voice trembling. No, not at all. I lied again, I said coldly. Wow. Lying really does make it easier to communicate with someone who trusts you, doesn't it? She observed with a bitter edge. I've been lying too. My parents are billionaires and will never have to worry about money again. I'll never leave you, and you'll have an unlimited allowance for life. Pouting said, not funny. Isn't it hard to talk to someone who lies to your face to get what they want? I'm sorry, I won't lie to you again. I promised, trying to end the game. Will you stop lying to me? She asked, her voice filled with doubt. Yes, I will, I assure her. A tear rolled down Kay's cheek. I love you with all my heart. Your kids love you. My sisters and parents think you're the best husband in the world, she said, her voice softening. I'm not sure I believe you. They were pretty disrespectful. The other day I said, still wary. No, that's not true. They were just kidding. Let's have a party this weekend, so you can see how much everyone adores you, she suggested, trying to convince me. That sounds fun. Will Mark and Ron be there too? I asked, trying to sound interested. Sure, the whole family, she confirmed, is Saturday afternoon. Okay, I inquired, setting a tentative plan. Sure, honey, that would be great. She agreed. Then, with a hint of suspicion, she added, You're not lying to me again, are you? No, having everyone over will be a memorable experience, I replied, trying to reassure her. Great, a big party to show how much everyone loves you, she said, hugging me while I stayed seated, even kissing the top of my head. Lucky me, I'd been sleeping in the guest room for over a year and installed a deadbolt after I moved in, always keeping the door locked around. I heard an alarm clock go off in the house, and someone tried to pick the lock on my door, but the deadbolt held. I guess someone thought they could sneak into my bed early in the morning. Kay called all the relatives to invite them. Listening in on her calls was hilarious. She had to bribe her sisters with some of the $4,000 to get them to come. Ron and Mark were easy. She promised him NNA if they showed up. Her parents weren't interested until they heard about the $20,000 a month. Her dad was already scheming with Kay on how to screw me out of the money after the baby was born. What hurt the most was seeing Kay having to convince Sally and Kevin, our own children, to be nice to me. She mentioned money, and they begrudgingly agreed, not liking their attitude. She threatened to take away their allowance phones, home computers, and any future car if they messed it up. They quickly promised to be perfect children for their dad. But don't worry, it didn't hurt too much. 7 years ago, I started thinking of them as angry stepchildren, which is how they treated me and the level of authority I had over them. You would have thought I'd won the lottery. Everyone was overly nice, though I could see the fake smiles and clenched teeth I played along. Being polite, I complimented my kids on their behavior, which was so good it didn't seem like they were mine. I mentioned to Kathy that I ran into her boss leaving a downtown hotel, which made her nervous since she had just been with him. He's married with 4 kids, but she's been trying to latch on to a wealthier man. I found Ron and Mark by the bar and asked about their social life now that they were single. When they mentioned a particular club, I scowled, explaining that I'd heard it's where divorced guys get drunk and taken advantage of. They went pale. I had bugged their new apartment after all. I casually told my father-in-law that I thought I saw him and his brother with a young woman named Anley at a restaurant. My mother-in-law's glare could melt steel. I knew Anley was a transgender woman they had met at a hotel. Later, my father-in-law suddenly needed a refill on his drink, even though it was full. I guess he never shared those details with his wife. Finally, I was alone with my mother-in-law by the pool. No one dared interrupt. I remarked on how nice it was to see everyone together again. She mentioned Ron and Mark staying friends and becoming roommates after the divorce. But her eyes suggested she suspected they were more than just friends. I added that Katie and Kathy would bounce back, though raising 2 kids and working as a waitress and secretary would leave little time for romance, especially with 10 more years until the grandkids were out of her house. I then casually mentioned how well my kids were doing in school and suggested a pool party to inspire them. She absent-mindedly agreed, even though I knew the pool had been emptied years ago to cut costs. I brought up seeing her husband and his brother laughing and dining with her niece at a hotel restaurant. I showed her a photo I had edited carefully, removing feet from high heels under the table and raising a napkin on her husband's lap. After staring at it for nearly a minute, she quietly asked me to send it to her, seething with anger. As I glanced around, I noticed everyone was watching us. My mother-in-law, usually loud and controlling, was silent. A first in her life. "So I guess Kay told you about her little windfall." I said, "Yes, it's a wonderful chance for you two to get ahead. You should consider having another baby to secure your financial future, especially with your job situation." My mother-in-law responded, a conniving look in her eyes. "Well, Kay and I have had some marital issues. We'll see if we can work through them. She loves you and it's a lot of money," she said, practically salivating at the thought. "I hope you'll encourage her to do whatever it takes to make our marriage work." I replied with a sneer. She added, "Don't take too long. She has other options." I leaned back. "Other options?" "Well, her sisters can't help. Infidelity is off the table for them. If Kay tries to divorce me, I'll sue for infidelity. I have proof if she gets pregnant by someone else. A DNA test will show it, and I've already secured an attorney with all the evidence. Just in case something happens to me, any lawsuit will cut off any money going to the plaintiff." So what were these other options? My mother-in-law was speechless, her mouth hanging open in shock. Everyone at the party was staring confused. I smiled at her, watching her struggle for words. Finally, she asked, "Can you get me another soda, please?" I took her glass and headed to the kitchen from the sink. I watched her frantically talk to her husband and daughters. Clearly upset, they all turned to look at me. When they noticed her staring, she abruptly grabbed her husband's hand and led him out of the backyard through the side gate without saying another word. The three sisters then stormed into the house, berating me for upsetting their mother, repeatedly asking what I had said. From that day on, my mother-in-law never spoke directly to me again. Next, I turned my attention to Sasha, standing 5'8". She was a divorce whose husband had cheated on her. I checked court documents and her PI's findings. Originally, I hadn't considered Sasha in my plans. But after overhearing her express hatred for John and frustration with what she had become, I realized her potential as a salesperson for my new company, Any. Woman who worked so hard to downplay such a great figure was someone I wanted to know better. I took photos of my boss, John and Sasha walking arm in arm out of a downtown hotel. No kissing, just looking physical, engaged. I didn't want anything too embarrassing getting out. I sent the pictures to John's wife. When John got home, his wife confronted him with the photos, reminding him of the rules. Never in the house, no children, nothing public, John argued, but eventually gave in. She wasn't going to be easy to crack, so I knew I'd have to up the stakes. That Monday, JN fired Sasha. I was waiting outside as she left. "Hi, Sasha." "What wrong?" I asked, noticing her distressed expression, visibly upset. She replied nothing. "I just got fired." I caught up to her. "Sorry to hear that. Can we talk? I have something you might want to hear," I offered, trying to sound sympathetic. Sasha stopped and stared at me. "What do you want?" she asked, suspicion evident in her voice. "I want to offer you a job," I said directly, doing what she inquired. Her curiosity piqued sales at my software company. I explained, keeping my tone professional. "I didn't know you owned a software company." "Wait, how did you know was getting fired today?" she asked. Sharp as ever, I looked her in the eye. Let's just say I've been keeping a close eye on my competition and didn't want to miss out on talent, I replied, revealing just enough to satisfy her curiosity. "How much?" she asked, getting straight to the point. "Same salary plus 20%, but you'll need to pay for your own apartment. I saw your place listed in the company books and don't want any strings attached." I clarified, laying out the terms. "Deal." "When do I start?" She agreed without hesitation. "You're already on the clock. I'll pick you up around the corner so JN doesn't see you. He's probably watching." I instructed, planning ahead. I walked away, and when I glanced back, she was flipping off John's office. I picked her up, and we headed to my house on the way. I told her about my marriage. When I mentioned I hadn't had sex with my wife in 2 years, Sasha asked if I was joking. Not. Since I found out she was cheating, I confessed, my voice heavy with the weight of the situation. I explained that I wouldn't be married much longer, but needed Kay's help to get my company from John. I asked Sasha to keep it a secret. She smiled warmly. Those brown eyes were something else. When we arrived, Katie was there. Katie growled. "Who's this?" Her tone filled with suspicion. "This is my new head of sales and marketing. Sheck be working here for now, Any." "Problems, Katie?" I introduced Sasha, making my authority clear. "No problems," Katie replied, albeit reluctantly. Sasha seemed surprised by her new title, but I set her up at a desk next to mine. We spent the day going over my new software, which impressed her, especially the sales module. Over the past 2 years, using cheap labor and countless hours, I had rewritten all of John's programs. The new software was 10 times faster, smaller, and more intuitive, with all the features John deemed too expensive. I gave Sasha 3 leads already using my sales software, and she quickly secured appointments for demos. Before Sasha left, I told her I'd be having a conversation with Kay in the kitchen, that I wanted her over here. I might need your help tonight. I hinted my tone suggesting the seriousness of the situation. I left the office door open and called Kay into the kitchen. We need to talk. I began preparing for a difficult conversation. Kay, I'm not going to have ZX with you, I stated bluntly. But we've been getting along so well. She protested, surprised by my sudden statement. I need you and your sisters to sleep with someone, I said. Cutting to the chase, what we're not hookers. You can order around. She snapped her voice, rising in anger. What if I promise to give you a divorce so you can remarry and have a legitimate baby? I offered, trying to sweeten the deal. You'll let me divorce without claiming infidelity? She asked, her tone softening as she considered the proposal. Yep, I confirmed. Kay smiled. Who do we have to sleep with? She asked, now more cooperative. My boss, John. I need you and your sisters to meet him in a hotel room tonight. I instructed, laying out my plan. We can't do it tonight. How about tomorrow? She suggested, trying to negotiate. No, it has to be tonight. He just dumped his girlfriend and will be looking for a rebound. I insisted, my voice firm. Okay, but who'll watch the kids? She asked, practical as ever. Sasha and I will, I reassured her. Kay hesitated, about to ask something about Sasha, but I quickly pulled out a new purse from under the table. I have a present for you, I said. Trying to divert her attention, I pointed to some black buttons on the purse. These are cameras. Just make sure nothing blocks the view. I explained, my tone casual yet purposeful. Kay hesitated again. I'm not sure I'm comfortable being recorded. She admitted, her voice tinged with unease. I have weeks of videos of you with different guys. I stated bluntly, the tape of you with Ron and Mark is over 2 hours. I've got days of footage of you and Cheryl in our bed. Don't tell me you're shy now. I added, my voice firm, reminding her of the leverage I held. Kay, looking sad, asked, You have videos of me with Ron, Mark, and Cheryl? Her voice was barely above a whisper, the weight of the situation sinking in, yep, and many more. I confirmed without hesitation. If I do this, will you destroy all the recordings? She asked, a glimmer of hope in her voice. Absolutely, do this for me and they're gone. I promised, sealing the deal. Kay smiled again, a reluctant acceptance in her expression. Okay, Letton, do this, she agreed, her voice steadying as she committed to the plan. Kay called her sister and explained the plan. Within 20 minutes, they arrived with their kids, all dressed in the smallest outfits I'd ever seen them wear. I didn't even know Kay owned something so skimpy. But when you offer free babysitting drinks, a hotel suite, and a news ex-partner, how else would they react? Once alone with the sisters on the porch, I showed them a picture of JN and said, I want you to wear him out. Their eager smiles told me they were up for it. After they left, Sasha and I got the kids settled in front of the TV and went to the office to monitor the situation. I started to explain more of my plan to Sasha, but she waved me off, saying no need. From what I've seen and heard, John deserves whatever's coming. The sisters arrived at the lounge before JN and I told Kay to leave her purse on the table so I could see through the cameras. JN eventually showed up, but with Nancy from work, Sasha cursed when she saw Nancy. She didn't waste any time, did she? Sasha snapped a picture of them at the bar and sent it to NY's boyfriend Glenn with a quick call implying trouble. Within minutes, Nancy was crying and running out, leaving John confused. But when Kay shouted across the bar, forget her. John quickly joined the sisters at their table. Soon they were all headed to a hotel suite. In the room, the sisters quickly undressed, followed by JN, and they all got onto the bed, where things escalated into a chaotic scene. After 25 minutes, I was pretty turned on and looked over at Sasha, who was also visibly flustered. I apologized and offered to stop watching, but Sasha suddenly ran out of the room. I thought I'd offended her, but she returned, locking the door behind her, and said, "The kids are asleep. I need you." After 2 years without Zex, I wasn't going to say, "No, we hooked up," then resumed watching the video. They might actually screw him to pass away. I remarked, "Nice way to go." Usually John's a one-and-done guy. I saw Kay give him 2 Viagra. I wonder if he was dumb enough to take both. From what we saw, it looked like he did. Sasha and I later slipped into the guest room, showered together, and slept there. I wanted to enjoy her company as long as possible. We set the alarm to wake up before the kids to avoid any morning drama in the morning. I fast-forwarded through that video. The sisters had kept John busy for over 3 hours, treating him like a human Zeke's doll. His grin showed he didn't mind. Sasha wanted to leave, but I convinced her to stay for a few more hours, and she even made breakfast for the kids, who were amazed. Sasha left around 9 to change clothes. Kay and her sisters returned around 11, exhausted but smiling, while John looked worn out. I gave Kay more instructions and had her call JN for a repeat performance. He agreed, but insisted on only taking 1 Viagra this time. They started drinking in the suite before John arrived. When he knocked, Kay handed him 2 Viagra, but he only took 1. After a few minutes, Ron and Mark showed up, greeted John, and joined the fun. I stopped watching at that point, preferring to wait until Sasha was back. She had client visits in the morning, so I planned to watch the tape later the next day with Sasha, the sisters still at the hotel, and the kids at school. I fast-forwarded through the tape. It looked like a bad European B-movie from the 70s, but I got what I needed. I rented an apartment downtown, right across from John's office, and paid a maid to keep it clean and stocked with food and water. I had the 3 sisters meet John there every day after work, as often as he allowed. When John tried to skip a day for rest, I gave the sisters tips on where to hang out so he couldn't avoid them. To keep Katie and Kathy motivated, I promised them 10% of Kay's $220,000 monthly allowance once she was divorced and had the baby. Kay agreed, knowing they'd mooch off her otherwise, and that without them, there'd be no divorce. I eventually sent a highlight reel of John's activities to his wife, blacking out everyone's faces except John's. At first, I thought my plan might fail, since John's wife was strikingly attractive and, interestingly, the daughter of a local mob boss. When John got home, his wife dragged him to the bedroom, stripped him, and hog-tied him on the bed. She played the video on their big TV while John begged for forgiveness. Without saying a word, she pulled out a giant paddle and began knocking him. Finally, she told him, "I'm divorcing you. If you fight me, I'll release these videos to everyone you know." John nodded, terrified. She added, "I'm leaving for a week on a yacht with my boyfriend. When I return tomorrow morning, I expect the locks to be changed and you to be gone forever. You get nothing from this house except the clothes on the floor in your car. If you ever come back, there will be consequences." As she walked out, John screamed through his gag. But she coldly replied, "Don't worry. A couple of men will escort you out. Have a nice life." The next morning, 2 large, silent men in suits untied JN when he moved toward the bathroom. They pulled out weapons, forcing him to dress quickly and leave. They waited until he drove away. John's wife filed for divorce. That same day, though, upset, John was too busy with the sisters to dwell on it. He started staying at the apartment, which made it easier for them to control him. When they saw the bruises on his bum, they laughed, and Katie even spanked him until he cried. John's wife froze all their accounts, and he soon struggled to pay his employees. Losing 25% of his business to a new competitor didn't help. I called 3 key people at John's company, hinting that payroll might not happen and offering them jobs. They didn't commit right away, but I left the door open. A few days later, John tried to access his garage but found it locked. I texted him. I told you only your clothes and car, believing his wife was behind the leaked video. He was shocked when a tape of him with Ron and Mark spread throughout the industry, courtesy of an anonymous tip to a big-mouthed competitor. Within a week, the 3 key employees called back. Accepting my offer with John's reputation ruined his company, struggling financially, and his divorce looming. I managed to capture 90% of his clients within 60 days. His company shut down 2 days after his divorce was finalized. Once my company was thriving, I filed for an uncontested divorce and paid to expedite the process. I gave Kay the house. Though she didn't know I had taken a second mortgage on it to fund my startup, half of our $88,000 joint account, her car, and nothing else. When she demanded half of my company, I told her it wasn't worth anything on paper yet, and threatened to change the grounds to infidelity. She quickly signed the papers, clearly thinking $220,000 a month. Here I come. We were divorced 60 days later, the day after Kay married the mechanic, likely expecting to be rich and enjoy her new life. She spent the $8,000 and the $20,000 from her parents on the wedding soon after she was pregnant. Rumor had it they were physical engaged, even during the wedding. 3 months later, Kay and her mom visited the trust fund lawyers, expecting the $20,000 monthly payments to start. They were shocked to learn the trust funds had already been awarded to another candidate. The lawyers had to call the police due to the damage caused during the confrontation. The audio was frankly amusing. A few weeks later, Kay showed up at my house in a short red dress with no underwear, trying to reopen the divorce settlement. I reminded her the divorce was final and she was remarried. She offered to get back together and lifted her dress, asking if I missed her. I snapped a picture and asked if her new husband would appreciate seeing it. I then slammed the door. She banged on the door, screaming and crying, begging me not to send the photo. I told her I wouldn't, as long as she never came back. Her last words were, "I'm sorry. I ruined our marriage. I wish you had been enough for me." It was clear she was living in a delusion. I eventually let go of my surveillance hobby, destroying all the recordings. John disappeared after his company closed, with his last known location in San Francisco's Castro district. His wife remarried a younger CEO and had 3 kids with him. My own kids graduated from high school and ended up in dead-end jobs. They asked me for work, but I told them to call me if they ever became programmers. Ron and Mark leveraged their notoriety from the video into a different kind of stardom, eventually befriending a successful business owner looking to retire. Katie ended up in a better place. She and Cheryl, who divorced her husband, got married and seemed genuinely happy. Kay's parents lost their last property and eventually got divorced, each going their separate ways. Kay herself stayed married for about a year before losing her house and being left by the mechanic. She now works as a waitress, lives in a trailer, and raises the mechanic's child. As for those who cheated with my wife and others, I didn't let them off the hook. After Kay lost the trust fund money, I sent all the incriminating videos and voice recordings to their spouses and relatives using Kay's personal email. I sent over 300 emails and cloned her phone to ensure the messages were received. Kay sent me an angry text accusing me of breaking my promise to destroy the recordings. I replied, "Thanks for making honesty unnecessary in our marriage. It made getting what wanted so much easier." She never responded. Regarding the divorces, I uncovered 13 cases linked to Kay Cathy and their mechanic lover. The mechanic, notorious for his big tool, caused 8 divorces by seducing other men's wives and sending derogatory texts about their husbands. Katie mostly messed around with single women, so she didn't directly cause any divorces. Cathy, on the other hand, was responsible for 10 divorces, none of which led to reconciliation, because the wives lost all respect for their husbands after they stooped so low. My mother-in-law caused 1 divorce, and Kay was directly responsible for 13, with 2 reconciliations. These numbers only account for the direct divorces. Some of the men implicated other women, leading to additional divorces and a few arrests due to resulting confrontations. Thankfully, no one died, though there were serious consequences for all involved. The mechanic nicknamed Lefty, after an incident with Katie and Cheryl, ended up with a permanently damaged tool bent 90 degrees to the left. He tried to press charges, but explaining how his injury occurred during sex made it difficult. The detectives handling the case had a hard time keeping a straight face. As for Lefty's ex-wife, I met with her to apologize for the blame she took during the sisters' divorces. She joked about the incident where she broke my mother-in-law's nose, calling it the highlight of her year. I asked if she was dating and introduced her to my recently divorced 6'2" neighbor who used to play rugby. She was interested and they hit it off after a barbecue at my place. She and her kids spent the night at his house and they never left. They got married 6 months later, with Sasha 7 months pregnant as a bridesmaid. As for me, my business is thriving. Before retiring, Sasha secured 3 major clients, ensuring the company's success. We got married quickly. I couldn't help it. I keep getting her pregnant. We're now expecting our 4th child. We moved near my parents to a beachfront property where it's warm 300 days a year. We live in a small house, but spend most of our time on the large back deck with our 3 huge dogs. I taught the dogs to bark and growl at a picture of my ex-wife, just in case she ever shows up looking for money. Unfortunately, one of the local vet assistants looks like my ex, so she has to hide when my dogs are around. Before we married, I showed Sasha all the details of my hobby. She took it as a warning, but laughed and told me she had nothing to worry about. A perfect response. And yes, as you might have guessed, I was the executive of the trust in Kay's uncle's name, I. Close the trust to reclaim my money and start my new life.